So I'm so sorry I've not put any crime stories up lately. If you haven't seen any updates, I am pregnant with twins. I'm due just in September time, so things have went a little bit slower, but I want to do as many cases as possible before I finish up for mat leave. So thank you again so much for joining. Remember, like, comment and subscribe. Our other crime cases are on this channel as well. You do get a notification every time we upload a new video, so again, if you do ring that bell, it will give you a notification. So today's case we're going to cover is the Gemma McCluskie case. Now, Gemma McCluskie was an actress in Eastenders. Gemma played the role of Kerry Skinner in EastEnders from October 2000 to February 2021. She was Zoe Slater's best friend. She was Robbie Jackson's girlfriend at the time in the soap. As I said, she was there from October 2000 to February 2021. Just to recast your minds and take you back a little bit, I'll show you a clip.
Oh look, it's Love's young dream. Don't leave on my account.
That's okay. Look, I better get back to work. Sorry about tonight.
What's tonight?
Nothing now.
Yeah,
Why don't we have a party?
yeah, alright, I'm up for it. Where?
Round your place, of course. Look, right, if you have a party round your house, Robbie won't have to go to some stupid council meeting he's let me down for.
No way carrying it after last time.
You're as boring as he is.
Gemma was born to parents Pauline and Tony on 15th February 1983. Now, on the 1st of March 2012, Gemma went missing. The call was raised through her brother Tony. Now, Gemma lived with her mum, her brother Tony, but she was very close to her dad, and also her brother Danny, who lived in a separate household. Now, Tony had called Gemma's dad to say that he hadn't seen her, he hadn't heard from her, and if he had heard anything from her. At that point, Gemma's dad hadn't heard anything either. Gemma's mum, Pauline, wasn't too well, and Gemma was classed as her main carer. At this point, Gemma's mum had been in the hospital. The last person to see Gemma was her brother Tony. Now, he'd called round her dad, her other brother Danny had called round the friends and family, and no one else had heard from her either. But what they found very strange was Gemma being her mum's carer, that she really wouldn't go far without letting someone know where she was. But at this point, people tried to call her, they'd left her messages, and yet again, no response. Gemma also worked in a club that was in Kingsland Road. Now, her dad had called down to the manager to find out if Gemma had turned up from her shift. And again, they had said that she hadn't turned up. They tried to call her, but again, no response. Gemma and her brother Tony had a volatile relationship, and it was well known within Gemma's friendship circles as well as within her family. They'd already expressed their concerns to Gemma's dad. Tony was smoking 20 joints a day. He was on a very strong cannabis, but again, it was giving him behavioural problems. It was giving him paranoia. He was very argumentative, very aggressive, and on 2 occasions he had tried to strangle Gemma as well as be physically violent to her. Gemma's dad, Anthony, had said to Tony, had there been any sort of argument before she disappeared, and all Tony had said was that he had left the bath on, it had flooded into the hall, and that Gemma had had a bit of an argument with him about it, and then she'd been off and out for the day. Some of Gemma's friends at that point also believed that possibly Gemma had maybe ran away because they knew she had a volatile relationship with her brother. But what also was concerning at the time was she was her mum's main carer. So again, she would have let somebody know where she was. It got to a point that they started putting social media posts up, flyers up, to raise awareness. Now, Gemma's other brother Danny was doing all this. He was out looking for his sister. But at this point, Tony had decided to stay in the house. Now, the reason for that was just in case she came home or if she made a phone call back home. It was decided on the 3rd of March that Tony and Danny, the brothers and a close friend of Gemma's, would go to the police and report Gemma missing. Now, when they did this, the police had a chat with the brothers. Danny was very forthcoming, but when they spoke with Tony, he gave 3 different accounts of the story, which then frustrated his brother Danny because he basically said he was too high to give a story, and he said that he couldn't tell times or what time was the last time he seen her or exactly what happened. It was very, very patchy at that point. And also, Gemma's cousin contacted the local newspaper as well. At this point, they'd arranged a search party to look for Gemma. Now again, Tony had decided that he would stay at home while this search party took place, but when he got wind that the Sun newspaper were there, then he appeared from nowhere and also took part in the search, and again the appeal for Gemma, who was missing. The reporter was keen to speak to Danny and Tony, again, just to get more of the story and anything that they wanted to be published within the story. The reporter said that Danny, again, was very forthcoming, gave out all the information that he possibly could, but when she spoke to Tony, he was very distant, he was quite withdrawn, and again, he wasn't acting like the type of person that didn't know where his sister was. He didn't seem too panicked either. As this time was going on, the family knew there was something wrong. This had been the longest Gemma had ever been away. But again, also Gemma's mum was in the hospital, so they would suspect that Gemma would contact the hospital to find out how her mum was, which again didn't happen. There was nothing non-responsive when it came to her mobile phone as well. At this point, family and friends, as I said, knew that something wasn't right. Tuesday, the 6th of March 2012 at 2:30pm, a lady coming along in her barge in Regent Canal, she came into Acton Lock. She came across a suitcase which banged off the barge, and as it banged off the barge, the suitcase opened up and this torso appeared out. She called the police immediately, but again, this was in a public place where it didn't take long for word to get round that a body had been found in the suitcase. A lot of the community and the family and friends all found out through media and social media that a body had been found in the lock. Gemma had a very distinctive tattoo on her back, which was a bow. And when they brought the torso out, it was very distinctive that it was on the torso. So again, that went widespread through the community where it was an informal identification. A lot of family and friends also found out through social media that the body had been found, but also the small detail around the distinctive tattoos. Police knew straight away that it was Gemma, but they also knew at that point they were dealing with a murder case. When Gemma's dad found out the news, he suspected straight away that Tony possibly had something to do with this due to the aggressive arguments, but also the police had been called on 2 occasions to Pauline and Gemma regarding Tony's behaviour, where again he'd attempted to strangle her twice. Now this was all logged by the police, but again, as Tony's dad Anthony says, Tony was a very lonely man. He would come in from work, go straight up the stairs, not even get washed, and go straight to smoking joints all night until the next day. It changed his behaviours. He was very argumentative and could have been very aggressive at times. Due to Tony's stories being so inconsistent, the police had to go back to March the 1st to find out exactly Gemma's last movements. Now, it was then found that Gemma was woke up early because he'd overrun the bath. She'd went back in to wake Tony up. They'd had an argument. Where then Gemma had left to go to a friend's house. She'd actually left to go to the hospital to film her friend's event alongside her child, and then had come back to her friend's house for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, where Tony then phoned her mobile. Now, the friend says that Gemma was very calm on the phone, but she could hear the other person at the other end was ranting and raving down the phone. Gemma left her friend's house just after that. She left her friend's house at 1:17pm that day. The police checked her call records. She had tried to call Tony on 8 occasions, but none of them had connected. Eventually, at 1:47, she did connect to Tony's phone, but it was for 8 seconds between them. At 1:50, there was CCTV showing that she was then heading back into the street where they both lived. By 2:08pm that day, Gemma's phone was not hitting any local mass, so it means the phone was off at this point. Now, originally, Tony was classed as a significant witness in the murder for Gemma, and he gave his account of what had happened. He was very reluctant, impatient and forgetful, so he was basically saying that he couldn't remember much, he couldn't remember times and things like that. Now, the police at this point did have a feeling that Tony was responsible for the murder, but without any evidence there was nothing they could do, which then led them on to looking at Tony's phone records. There was messages found on Tony's phone on the 2nd of March, and that was to his girlfriend to apologise for not being in contact the night before, or not being contactable the night before. He also went to the hospital that day and that morning, I think about 10:31, to visit his mum. This is where it gets weird. At 4:51, Tony sent Gemma a message on the 2nd of March, a day after she was missing, saying, ring me when you get the message. What you having for dinner? Are you working tonight? Now, obviously, at this point, Gemma's missing. So the police also checked by a minicab company, which they then found a booking under the name of Tom. They went and spoke to the cab company and found that 2 people within the cab company, the driver and the other person, had actually dealt with Tom, aka Tony, on the 1st of March, and he was carrying a heavy bag, but they also had CCTV because the taxi was parked behind the office. So again, I'll show you the CCTV that they have at the moment, which was then taken from the minicab company. Now you can see in that CCTV footage there that he is carrying a black bag, but what they also decided to do was test the taxi out, the boot and everything where the bag was, and that was the first firm part of evidence that they had that Gemma's blood was actually in the boot of that taxi. Now they dropped him at the Regent Canal, right towards basically where she was found. Then part of the CCTV, you'll see that's when he's pulling the bag along. So this was the first firm bit of evidence that the police had been given. On the 10th of March 2012, Tony was charged with his sister's murder. Now, he finally gave his version to his dad, and he said that Gemma had came in the house, she was really screaming and shouting and ranting and raving because what had happened in the morning, and she'd said she wanted him out the house, his mum didn't want him there, everything else like that. He then said that he was up the stairs and she came up the stairs with a knife. Now, Gemma's dad said that that just would not have been Gemma to do that in the first place, but this was Tony's versions of events. To begin with, forensics found barely nothing in Tony's flat. There were no blood signs, they used all different treatments, but nothing showed up. The scientists were pretty adamant at that point that the murder had not taken place in that flat, until they found matter, which was found in the bathroom cabinet, which is basically the inside of the body. So again, that was another firm bit of evidence to see that it had happened within that flat, and again that did match Gemma's DNA. The police do genuinely believe that he did a good clear up of the murder scene, that the fact that how gruesome that this body had been dismembered, but again, there were still no signs other than this one wee part of matter which was in the bathroom cabinet. Days later, a lot of the locals who had their boats and things on the loch and their barges were up and down the canal looking for, again, other parts of Gemma, which in a few days they found most of Gemma's body in black bin bags, heavy industrial ones. The people, the volunteers that were helping, said the bags were very, very distinctive. They were very, very well wrapped, but the very last one had showed a pink nail polish and things like that. But at this point, they still hadn't found Gemma's head. On the 9th of September, Gemma's head was found 2 miles away from the canal originally where she was found. The man that found her had hooked a bag and he'd put the bag at the side to let it dry. And then a little while later, he opened the bag and unfortunately had the grim discovery of finding Gemma's head. It then let the pathologist look at it, and it was decided that Gemma had been killed with blunt force trauma to the head. Now, it's happened twice over, so again, it was decided that Gemma was dead before anything else had happened other than the blunt force. It could have been like a heavy object, an ashtray, something like that. It just makes you realise how grim things are, but it makes you realise how good the investigation teams are, the police are, that they can, again, pathologists, work this out. Now, on the 14th of January 2013, Tony was in the Old Bailey. Now, his story in court was he could not remember. Now, bearing in mind in his police interviews, everything was no comment. So Again, it was another indicator to, if you weren't guilty, why would you no comment? If you still think your sister's maybe been abducted and murdered, you would do everything you could to help. It was then worked out that Tony originally tried to use a knife to take off one of his sister's limbs, and that didn't work, and it took nearly 24 attempts, so he went for an axe. And what actually happened was it made it a lot quicker, which he then put into parts, put it into the bags, and obviously made it a lot more cleaner than what we would expect. His dad said in court he made himself look like a fool. He blamed it on amnesia. It was quickly ruled out that he didn't have amnesia, but again, he still wouldn't tell the story. He said that he forgot. He was showing no signs of remorse. This is the funny thing. His dad, Anthony, backed him up originally and stuck by him. Now, Anthony's sister didn't agree, which would have been Tony's auntie, didn't agree why he would stick up for her. But what he had actually said was that he didn't want to lose two children. He'd already lost his daughter, and he didn't want to lose his son as well. But not long after that, he was receiving letters from Tony, and he said that there was no remorse in them. He would never mention Gemma's name. And then eventually his dad just said enough was enough. He went to visit him in prison and said he couldn't be part of it anymore. He was charged, Tony, and he was given life imprisonment for his sister's murder. It is believed that Tony was very, very jealous of Gemma. Gemma was a very outgoing person, the life and soul of the party, would say her piece, whether Tony was very quiet in himself, the complete opposite. And they'd said that leading up to Gemma's death, there was a lot of tension within the house between Gemma, her mum Pauline, as well as Tony. Now, again, Pauline, Gemma's mum, sadly passed away in 2013. She struggled to get over the loss of her daughter, and obviously what her son had done. He's never showed remorse. He's never gave up the game. He's never said why he did it, exactly what happened. But again, Gemma's dad feels it was down to jealousy, and again, probably the drugs that he was taking. It's a very, very sad case, a very sad case. And again, it might only happened a way back in 2012. But it's nice to keep cases like this relevant as well. What I do think in that case is that it was jealousy. I also get that he's still not remorseful. I think there's a lot of mental health and schizophrenia connected around maybe that man's problems. I don't think he'll ever get out of prison. I want to say that, again, as the pathologist said, I feel that that lovely Gemma was had passed away before any of the horrific things had happened. His dad did say, "Why didn't you come to me and tell me?" I truly believe that he was quite cold and callous, Tony, where it didn't matter to him whether it was his sister or not. He seemed to function through life quite okay until everyone actually knew what had happened to her. So that says a lot as well. It's a very, very sad case. I just want to send some love and prayers and thoughts to Gemma's family. It must have been a very, very hard time, and I can't imagine it gets any easier. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is just a quick wee crime story. Hopefully when I'm on mat leave, I'm going to try and come back and do some more as well. But remember, like, comment and subscribe. I will be updating on the YouTube as well around the twins. I have an update. I am 21 weeks just now. So not too long to go. It's getting exciting. It's becoming very real. But remember, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat and TikTok. It's all Christie's Readings across the board. Thank you so much for watching. Once the babies come, we will go back to doing the spirit box. But for the time being, the spirit box is out just because, again, don't want to be playing with that type of thing, especially when I'm pregnant at the moment. Guys, I hope you all have a lovely evening. Thanks for joining me. Stay safe and take care.